Number 5 on this list is SCP-2846. SCP-2846 is actually a set of events that occur in the Gulf Atlantic region in the Atlantic Ocean. However, when I specify it as being SCP-2846-A, now we're referencing a very dangerous creature that has to be caught. I'm talking about a massive octopus-like being that is almost 1,000 meters in length. To put that in perspective for you guys, a blue whale, the largest living creature on the planet that we know of, is 30 meters in length when it's at its biggest. So this octopus is roughly 33 times bigger than a blue whale. It is truly absolutely massive. This creature is a menace as well as its preferred meal is human. Being as big as it is capable of taking down an entire cruise ship and dragging its victims to the bottom of the ocean with it. This creature is thought to have existed for thousands and thousands of years, but it's hard to know a lot about it considering how difficult it is to study. Whenever it does appear though, we at least have a response team that can subdue it for a while. This is SCP-2846-B and refers to a massive Navy ship that would be considered a super dreadnought. This ship will appear when there have been reports of SCP-2846-A and will be able to fend it off, stopping it from doing any further damage. However, the problem with this is that most of the damage has already been done. By that point, the cruise ship or chosen target will have already been annihilated by this aquatic monster, and hundreds to thousands of lives could have been lost in the process. If we want to stop the death of these people, then we need to make it a priority to catch this being and lock it up for good. Obviously that's easier said than done though, because 33 blue whales in length it's a pretty powerful creature. Number 4 on this list is SCP-610. The problem with SCP-610 is that it's extremely easy to catch, and that's what makes it so hard to deal with. SCP-610 is not necessarily a creature or demon, but actually a disease. It is a skin disease that causes an array of problems for the infected individual. The disease first appeared in Russia, and some believe that the Russian government had some sort of connection to its origin. Regardless of where it came from though, it is now in several areas all throughout some parts of Europe and a lot of Asia. Many of these areas are locked down where you're unable to enter them. However, authorities believe that it is still relatively uncontained and rampant in areas that we currently don't even know about. The symptoms associated with SCP-610 are pretty drastic, and classifying it as a skin disease, it's a little bit of an understatement. The first symptoms are a rash, some itching, a few blemishes. It's nothing too major, but then you start to scar. Big, painful lesions will appear around your chest and stomach. Sunlight will hurt you, and your skin will feel as if it's burning. Then, once the full infection has taken over your body, which can actually be in a matter of minutes, you will die. But that's not the end of your story. You will be without life for 3 minutes, but then your body will automatically restart. The scar tissue will start to move all around your body, and human features will leave you. It will start to take over your entire body and manipulate it in weird ways. Extra limbs might grow, your head might become misshapen, your face may no longer be your face anymore. All features that once made you will be totally gone. It's currently unknown how much of your mind this disease takes, but it has been noted that your personality is forever gone and you can't possibly be functioning at the same capacity that you were before. It is said that any human contact with somebody who is infected will lead you to become infected, and this is why SCP-610 has to be contained. If a major outbreak ever hit a populated city, then the whole world could be at risk. Number 3 on this list is SCP-2399. SCP-2399 is once again not necessarily a singular creature, but could certainly be run by one. It's actually a structure not present on Earth, but on Jupiter. Said to be located in Jupiter's lower atmosphere in what we have come to know as the Great Red Spot, this is a mechanical structure with some extremely advanced technology. It apparently has access to antimatter-based weaponry, which can create spatial disruptions and change the atmosphere. In fact, the Great Red Spot on Jupiter is a massive raging hurricane, but people believe that this was created by SCP-2399. Right now, we don't believe that SCP-2399 is operating at its full potential and could be damaged in some sort of fashion. Computer simulations suggest that it's just over halfway functional and is trying to repair itself. What caused it to be slightly broken or not fully completed, that's unknown, but we have seen multiple drones circulate the space around it trying to repair it as needed. Experts have tried to contact SCP-2399 but haven't received any communication back. This thing is so scary due to its potentially limitless power. It is so technologically advanced that the people studying it don't think that we'd ever be able to destroy it or even remotely stand a chance in a fight with it. They already believe that it has the capability to ravage our entire planet in a manner that we can't even understand. Considering Earth is actually smaller than Jupiter's red spot, that means that SCP-2399 is, at the very least, capable of conjuring a hurricane bigger than our planet. This SCP might never be able to be caught, but based on what it's capable of doing, it has to be. Number 2 on this list is SCP-871. SCP-871 is a collection of cakes, like birthday cakes, cupcakes, tiny little pastries. Okay, I know, it sounds ridiculous, but hear me out on this one. SCP-871 is a collection of 237 cakes to be exact. Now, as I said, they can vary in types of cakes, but they will always be a very tasty, sweet, baked good of some kind. Now, currently, some of these cakes are contained, but not all 237 of them are. So you're probably thinking, okay, you eat the cake and then you die. Well, actually, that's not the case. The cake itself is super tasty and does absolutely nothing to you other than, maybe a few unneeded calories. What makes this creature a serious danger to society though is what happens after you had the cake. 24 hours after the cake was consumed, a slightly different cake will appear right where the last one was eaten. This will happen again and again and again, and it will go on forever. Now, once again, you're probably thinking, this is the best thing ever. I'm gonna have a free cake up here in front of me for the rest of my life. This is awesome. And if you keep eating it, or somebody else does, then you're probably right, that's great. But let's go down the rabbit hole assuming that you don't eat it. If you don't eat it, then another cake will spawn next to it anyways. Then after that, both of those cakes will spawn cakes, and then after that, all of those cakes will spawn more cakes, and so on, and so on, and so on. If this is forgotten about, then I kid you not, cakes could literally take over the planet. Researchers estimate that an uncontrolled outbreak would render the world completely uninhabitable after about 80 days, and there would be no turning back at that point. That's why every single one of these original cakes have got to be taken to a controlled facility and literally eaten once a day. Granted, if I was going to die, then death by cake world, probably not the worst way to go. Number 1 on this list is SCP-736. SCP-736 is simply impossible to catch with our current levels of technology. Therefore, it is extremely critical that while we are finding out a way to catch this thing, we at least develop a friendly relationship with it. SCP-736 is actually a moon, or at least an anomaly that is currently affecting the Saturnian moon of Iapetus. This Saturnian moon currently has an orbital period of 79 days around Saturn. The anomaly that we have witnessed changes that though. In fact, scientists have watched as every now and then this moon will completely alter its orbit. This orbit will eventually go back to normal, but only after this moon has moved and manipulated itself in ways that don't make any sense with our current understanding of physics. Right now, people believe that the moon is actually being controlled by an unknown intelligent entity. Whether this is the moon itself or some other third-party creature acting upon it, we have no idea. The reason that we believe this is that because back in 2007, when a probe was passing by this moon, it was contacted by a radio signal. This couldn't be deciphered by humans, however, it has led us to believe that a life force that is technologically advanced is living out on this moon, or something with the capability of utilizing radio waves is out there. We've attempted to contact this particular entity on the moon many times, but with no success. The scary part about this, and why we have to do something, is that this is a big object, guys. It is just under half the size of our moon and can apparently bend the laws of physics and go where it pleases. If it was potentially to crash into Saturn, then the effects it would have on our solar system, they'd be astronomical. Or even worse, if it were to crash into Earth, then the entire planet would collapse and the human race would cease to exist. All of this means that SCP-736 has to be contained or caught at some point for the safety of the planet.
Coming in at number 5, SCP-054-FR. 054-FR is a phenomenon occurring in some waves off the western coasts as well as some eastern coasts. It is characterized by the physical transformation of effective waves to resemble the jaws of a great white shark. This SCP is capable of remaining unnoticed until it is almost too late to act. It is capable of forming on waves at least 4 meters tall, but the maximum height of which it can reach is unknown. Effective waves are capable of rolling at 3 times the speed of non-effective waves if a non-aquatic animal of a human being is situated between SCP-054 and the closest coast. Appearances of this SCP are growing considerably if the previously evoked individuals are situated at a distance of at least 250 meters from the coast, whether they are swimmers, divers, or aquatic vehicles of moderate size, with the most common victims having been surfers. Injuries caused by SCP-054 are similar to that which could be accomplished by a great white shark, but with the pressure being directly proportional to the height of the effective wave. Injuries in 68% of cases occur during the collapse of the wave over the victim. Reported injuries have been as simple as a removed limb to total disappearance of the victim. The only method of avoiding injury is to dive under the wave before impact. An exclusion zone has been established around all shorelines where an occurrence of SCP-054-FR have been observed. Only personnel with a clearance level of 3 or higher may enter the containment zones, and only for experimental purposes. Access is forbidden to any and all civilians under the pretext of conducting research on a population of marine animals. Sneaky stuff, this is why I don't go in the ocean, ever. There's something lurking. Coming in at number 4, SCP-3389. SCP-3389 is a man-made lake located in the northeastern United States near the town of Pennsylvania. Any human being entering SCP-3389 will, after a variable amount of time, not exceeding 10 minutes, be pulled beneath the surface of the water regardless of the depth at which they were standing. A few minutes after being submerged, a statue of the subject's exact likeness will rise from the water in their place. These statues are unremarkable beyond their anomalous origin, consisting of a synthetic resin and concrete mixture and giving color by standard household latex paint. Upon discovery by the Foundation, there were at least 47 of these statues scattered around the lake, all in various states of decay. 13 currently remain, including that of a Dr. Blank. It is currently unknown how many instances are present prior to containment. Speaking of containment, all building, private and public land in a 10-kilometer radius around SCP-3389 have been purchased by the Foundation and designated Provisional Site 91. All roads and pedestrian pathways leading to the SCP are to be cordoned off and maintain a patrol of armed guards. An electrified chain link fence topped with barbed wire has been erected in the immediate vicinity surrounding 3389. 8 guard towers, each occupied by no less than 2 armed Foundation personnel and equipped with security cameras, have been erected to watch over the SCP at all times. Back to the statue though, if any instances of the statue's collapse, personnel stationed in the surrounding guard towers are to terminate any emerging statues instantly. No entities emerging from the lake are to reach beyond the chain link fence. If any personnel are apprehended by an instance of SCP-3389, every attempt is to be made to terminate them before they can be pulled into the water. Coming in at number 3, SCP-4217. 4217 refers to both the Bismarck, an anomalous German battleship sunk in 1941, and the large cephalopod organism that is fused to the inside of its hull. SCP-4217-B possesses a pair of octopoid eyes which protrude from the base of SCP-4217-A's superstructure and 12 100 to 200 meter long muscular hydrostats that extend from an opening in the stern. Now, aside from the presence of SCP-4217-B, SCP-4217-A shows no signs whatsoever of damage sustained from battle or subsequent decades submerged underwater. B seemingly operates A's systems. This includes its full armament of 8 main guns, 44 secondary secondary guns and 12 anti-aircraft guns. B also can operate A's propellers to reach speeds approaching 40 knots, but only while surfaced. This is way too much power for a creature to have and could be incredibly detrimental if you piss it off. While submerged, SCP-4217 achieves locomotion via ejection of water from B's body cavity. Typically, this SCP remains submerged at a depth of 500 to 1100 meters, navigating its territory. However, the SCP will periodically surface and enter a hostile state. During this period, it will seek and attack non-threatening targets. Now, Foundation naval forces are to patrol the SCP's territory with 3 or more battleships under the guise of the British Royal Navy. During a hostile state, naval forces are to engage with the SCP until it reverts to a passive state. Survivors from civilian vessels attacked by the SCP are to be recovered and processed in accordance with maritime disinformation protocols. Coming in at number 2, SCP-1128. SCP-1128 is an entity that manifests as a massive aquatic predator to anyone given a full description of the being's appearance through either spoken, written descriptions, or visual depictions of the being. Persons infected by SCP-1128 will initially exhibit no abnormal behavior, though some cases show a general aversion to activities involving bodily immersion in water such as bathing or swimming. Should subjects become fully immersed in water, they will disappear completely under the surface of the water, regardless of the water's actual depth. In most cases, they will reappear moments later in a panicked state and frantically try to leave the water. However, in other cases, the water will become polluted with blood and debris, confirmed to be the remains of the subject. That sucks. The subjects that reappear intact claim that they were transported to a vast ocean where they were pursued by SCP-1128. Interviews with the surviving subjects carry further contamination, as descriptions of the being's appearance trigger further infections. Yikes. Written description or imagery of the SCP's appearance or videos of the entity breaching found outside of the Foundation are to be destroyed, and Class C amnestics are to be administered to anyone exposed to such information or showing signs of the SCP's contamination. A written description of the entity's appearance is to be kept at site blank for experimental purposes only and is not to be read by anyone other than D-Class used for testing. If exposed, staff are to report immediately for administration of Class C amnestics. And finally, coming in at number 1, SCP-3000. SCP-3000 is a massive aquatic serpentine entity strongly resembling a giant moray eel. The exact length of 3000 is impossible to determine, however it is believed to be somewhere around 600 and 900 kilometers, with the head of SCP-3000 measuring roughly 2.5 meters in diameter, and sections of the body proper being around 10 meters in diameter. Yeah, horrifying. Now, 3000 is typically a sedentary creature, only moving its head in response to certain stimuli or during feeding. The majority of its body is located around the Ganges fan and rarely moves at all. SCP-3000 is carnivorous and despite its sedentary nature is capable of moving quickly to dispatch prey, aka us if we were ever to encounter it. Despite its size, it is believed that SCP-3000 does not require sustenance to maintain its biological functions, aka it kills for the hell of it. When 3000 consumes prey, a thin layer of viscous, dark grey substance classified as Y909 is excreted from its skin, with the end result of its digestive processes currently unknown. In some historical records, Dr. Eugene Getz reports on SCP-3000, I quote, "The unease was felt throughout the entire crew as we descended on that first night. Whether this was due to our uncertainty at what we would discover or something more sinister, I would not speculate. At around 0940 hours, we first observed the head of the entity. The unease was palpable now. Several other crew members complained of feeling hazy and of being uncertain what they were supposed to be doing. When we were within 50 meters, the entity turned slowly to look at us. Even now, as I recall watching this thing coil around in the darkness, I can still hear Williams barking like a mad dog in the rear of the vessel, screaming and flailing, shouting about how he could see it in his head. Frightening stuff. The area containing SCP-3000, currently a region of the Bay of Bengal, roughly 300 kilometers in diameter, is to be routinely patrolled by Foundation naval vessels. Under no circumstances are civilians allowed to attempt deep-sea exploration or diving efforts in the quarantined area. Individuals believed to have contacted SCP-3000 are to be contained, quarantined, and processed at Site-151. Sadly, there is currently no known cure for exposure to 3000. As such, affected individuals should be contained and quarantined quarantined for further evaluation. Awful.
Kicking off at number 5 is SCP-610, and this is one skin-crawling introduction to the bizarre world of the SCP Foundation, also known as the flesh that hates, which, you know, sounds terrifying enough all on its own. SCP-610 is a Keter class anomaly, which in the world of the Foundation means really bad. In essence, SCP-610 is a highly contagious skin disease, which once it has infected a host, they're consumed by scar tissue that grows at a disgustingly rapid rate, twisting and mutilating the individual into a writhing mass of bursting flesh. Infected subjects have been recorded as growing 3 or more limbs, such as arms or legs, and their head becomes misshapen and elongated, causing them to resemble a quadrupedal that struggles to maintain motion. The flesh that hates really does hate everything and everyone, and its sole motivation is to infect as many living beings as it can. The Foundation is pretty terrified of this anomaly, and as so far there are 0 special containment procedures for it. Coming in at number 4, SCP-049, aka the Plague Doctor, and this guy is pretty iconic when it comes to the Foundation's fandom. Of course he is, he's a Plague Doctor, the most fashionable of all doctors. I don't know. SCP-049 is a Euclid class humanoid entity, which in the Foundation standards means that he's kind of alright, but they still keep a close eye on him because he's unpredictable. He appears in thick black robes with a ceramic mask indicative of the medieval Plague Doctor profession. He's also highly intelligent, willingly conversing with Foundation researchers on a regular basis. Doesn't sound that bad, right? Well, SCP-049 has one motivation: to eliminate what he commonly refers to as the pestilence, and this skip goes to great lengths to combat its overwhelming presence, becoming highly aggressive and horrifyingly resourceful when he believes an individual is infected. If left unchecked, SCP-049 will cause all biological functions of an organism to cease through direct skin contact, and then begin to conduct what it refers to as surgery on the victim. In short, SCP-049 is a medieval necromancer convinced that humanity is a plague on the planet. Great stuff. Next up at number 3, SCP-096. Imagine a creature that once it has targeted you, nothing, literally nothing on the planet can stop it from tracking you down, ending your life in agonizing pain, and then consuming you from head to toe. Wow. Let me introduce you to SCP-096. In essence, the most terrifyingly clingy creature on the planet. 096 is a humanoid entity that is grossly twisted out of proportion, with nearly 0 muscle mass and long, claw-like arms that dangle below its waist. The thing that makes this skip so oppressive is that the only containment procedure is to ensure that no one ever views its face, because that's the trigger that results in 100% of cases being brutally killed. Whenever someone views SCP-096's face, be it directly via video recording or even a photograph, it enters a stage of bizarre emotional distress, screaming, crying and babbling, and then begin running to the person or persons who viewed its image. And then it's good night Vienna, lights out. Creepy stuff. Swinging in at number 2, SCP-106, also known as the Old Man, and perhaps the most nightmare-inducing creature in the entirety of the SCP Foundation. 106 is a Keter class anomaly, which means that it's really bad, and the Foundation goes to extremely difficult lengths in maintaining its containment. So bad that this guy is contained in a sealed container of lead-lined steel times 40, as well as a secondary containment area of various chemical fluid spheres under 24-hour surveillance. So why is the Foundation so terrified of this guy? Well, 106 is completely unkillable, appearing to be an elderly humanoid at an advanced stage of decomposition, in a constant state of rot. It currently serves the purpose to hunt down its prey, usually a human within the 10 to 25 years of age bracket, incapacitate them by damaging their major organs, and then pull them into its pocket dimension, where SCP-106 coats them in its digestive fluids and slowly feasts on them. Yeah. What a way to go, right? Well, the Foundation is stumped and no physical interaction is allowed at any time. Until they come up with some form of solution, SCP-106 is locked away in a box and the Foundation just hopes for the best. Not so comforting. And finally, at our number 1 spot, the Scarlet King, Of course, we have to end with the big bad baddie of the SCP universe, and that's saying something because, well, there's a lot of them. All of them pale in comparison to the King of the Darkness below, who is painstakingly kept at bay in a futile attempt by the Foundation. In the end, the Scarlet King will be summoned, and the world has to cross its fingers and hope the Foundation have got themselves in gear. The Scarlet King is a cosmic god whose awareness brought him great pain and thus declared a war on existence itself, with the sole intention to utterly destroy all life. In the canon, he had 7 bride daughters who birthed 7 leviathans as his children, some of which are entities under the Foundation's containment. There is one glimmer of hope though, because the Scarlet King's 7th bride daughter birthed SCP-999, perhaps the most joyous and loving creature in the known universe. It is thought that the only way to defeat the Scarlet King is with light and love and laughter that can brighten the blackest of hearts. But, well, that's a story for another video.
Coming in at number 5, we've got SCP-681. Gas leaks are no joke, but at least they aren't sentient. Could you imagine gas coming to find you even when you make it to well-ventilated safety? The horror, the terror, the breathlessness. It's all too much to handle. SCP-681 capitalizes on that fear and follows folks around. As of right now, it's contained in a series of grounded pressure tanks and watched over carefully, but if anything were to happen to these containers, stuff could go sideways. It was discovered in a warehouse after all sorts of unexplained asphyxiation deaths occurred. The Foundation arrived and figured out that the gas was actually quite sentient, and would find its way into the airways and sinus cavities of anything with brain waves that it could sense. So wherever this gas is, it wants to suffocate people. And the thing about helium gas is that it doesn't have a smell, and people don't often realize that they're not getting any oxygen if they're surrounded by it. Historically, it's been deadly because it's hard to detect but easy to breathe. So with the addition of the whole brainwave seeking bit, this gas can really mess people up. There are dozens of canisters of this stuff, and these kinds of things often fail, so you'd better watch out. Apparently the Foundation has done a poor job of keeping track of the canisters too. Unfortunate. Currently they have a few measures to ensure that it doesn't escape again. Folks working around it are given oxygen masks to put on at the first sign of trouble, and there are plenty of siphoning tools ready to use at a moment's notice. If all else fails, they put helium where it's best recognized, in latex balloons. However, if it's in one of the balloons, it will still attempt to float towards and asphyxiate nearby sentient creatures. It's a balloon though, so not much harm is done. Get this, if you put the helium in a balloon animal, it will start to take on aggressive traits of whatever creature it resembles. Damn, an angry balloon dog, or maybe just a snake. Just make sure not to pop them, because that's when things can get really dangerous. Coming at number 4, we've got SCP-3671. What did you have for breakfast this morning? I went with coffee and a pumpkin pastry, but most folks would opt for something different. Bacon and eggs is a classic, but it's become harder to get done with modern work expectations. Of course, you can get all that bacon and eggy goodness in a breakfast sando, which honestly might improve on the classic. There's fruit cups, there's yogurt, but there's also cereal. Essentially a vehicle for marketing colorful characters with a bit of nutrition on the inside of the box. Just be careful pouring yourself a bowl of crunchy goodness. Your cereal box might have been replaced with SCP-3671. This SCP is a sapient box of off-brand cereal that seems to manifest a new package of contents each morning. All part of a balanced breakfast, of course. When the Foundation started to experiment upon this box, they got all sorts of examples of funky cereals. Strawberry squares, bacon-flavored corn pops, granola pieces covered in chocolate. It all sounds pretty good, to be honest. But then the attending researcher accidentally ripped the box. 3671 was not happy about this. The label changed to say something simply awful, and the contents the next morning were less than edible. The cereal was replaced with razor blades, then thumbtacks, then bullets of various calibers. The box's label changed over time too, detailing violent acts and cereal-based puns. Yikes. One day, it seemed to return to normal and produce some average-looking cornflakes. Wrong. They contained lethal amounts of cyanide. All in all, this is a very dangerous box of cereal, one on a quest for revenge and out to destroy the humans who ripped its box. The latest discoveries have been plastic explosives, more threats, and human teeth. Somehow these teeth match the composition and genetic material of the researcher who ripped the box. This is one morbid breakfast item. So keep an eye out for any changes in your morning routine. It's hard to start the day right when your bowl is full of deadly poison. Coming in at number 3, we've got SCP-3181. Cognitohazards are always a blast, am I right? Changing the way our brains work and all. Some are extremely dangerous and could tear the fragile fabric of our society if given too much leeway. Others just kind of make weird stuff happen. You let me know which one of those categories applies to 3181. It's a KFC in Oklahoma that challenges our perception of the word boneless. Here's a direct example from the wiki. Within the confines of SCP-3181, the concept of boneless is distinct from the lack of bones. Something can be boneless despite possessing bones, and the lack of bones is irrelevant to whether or not something is boneless. Furthermore, any object, event, location, information, etc. can be sensibly described as boneless or not boneless. Interesting to say the least. I'm going to continue on reading right from the wiki for the sake of clarity and coherence because it's hard to discuss otherwise. The following generalizations have been made about bonelessness. Any two things that are mostly identical will either be both boneless or both be non-boneless. The probability of two things sharing the same boneless status decreases as differences accrue between them. All non-boneless things except for food products have similar boneless counterpart, which can be conceptualized and often created. The reverse is not true, as several boneless things are dissimilar from all known non-boneless things. A subject's ability to render something boneless is proportional to their will to accomplish a task, and only weakly proportional to their skill at the acts necessary to do so. Somewhere between 10 and 40% of all things are boneless, depending on how things are quantified. Boneless things are considerably more desirable than comparable non-boneless things. Canines are unique in preferring non-boneless things. Ordained priests of any Christian denomination are always boneless. Other humans are almost never boneless. Things that appear angry, insufficiently clothed, or internet connected are more likely to be boneless. Temperature is irrelevant to bonelessness unless it results in an obvious qualitative change. Food products are never boneless. Puzzle that one out. It's essentially a meme come to life, and one that makes communication concerning whether or not something is boneless more difficult than usual. Try not to think about it too hard, lest the whole world fall victim to the boneless masses. And don't even get me started on the ollie variation. Only true skaters are gonna get that one. Coming in number 2, we've got SCP-6102. How to approach this one? It's quite upsetting when you think about it, but the way that this document is presented makes it difficult to comprehend outright. It appears to be a wiki entry from some point in the future, a world where there are literally millions of SCPs, and the Foundation has employed auto-archivists to sift through abandoned places in search of anomalies. See if you can puzzle out what they're trying to tell you. They found an entity that was described as something with 4 outer limbs covered in a thin layer of flesh. These auto-archivists apply the 4 pillars of reason to the entities, which are capability, permanence, intelligence, and deification. In terms of capability, this thing was unable to be properly tested as it lacked any sort of compatible port for data transfer. When testing permanence, they attempted to lacerate the fleshy layer, resulting in a so-called blaring sound. Then, testing intelligence, the auto-archivists applied a plethora of tests meant to quantify all sorts of potential types of knowledge. They came away finding that it lacks purpose. Deification couldn't be properly tested, although they did find a carbon-based object in the entity's oral cavity. Take a look at this. It's an old soother. Wait. Is this thing a baby? And finally at number 1 we've got SCP-3035. Roaches are raunchy enough to start with, but when you have a batch like this, may something have mercy on your soul. The Foundation discovered a particular breed of roaches that were very good at superficial mimicry. They will see what another being is doing and do their best to replicate that action. Another detail worth noting is that these bugs are faster at picking up behaviors from each other. So if one looks at another mimicking something else, they'll start a bit of a feedback loop scenario. The researcher who decided to perform experiments on the bugs soon noticed that they were mimicking him. As he typed at his computer, they would stand in front of the glass of their enclosure and make tapping sounds. As he walked around and sat down in chairs, so too would they strut on 2 legs and seek out objects to perch upon. Eventually he had doll furniture installed in their enclosure to allow them to more accurately mimic his actions. This is when they started growing. They got bigger by degrees at first, but soon they were growing exponentially. And after he performed an autopsy on one of the cockroaches, they did the same to one of their own. When the bugs grew 150% larger overnight, the researcher decided to euthanize them all. But his next email was nothing but a bunch of random text, as if someone had been banging on his keyboard. Uh-oh.